Welcome, Swagatham, Vanakkam. In this video, which I envisage to be the final video on issues arising from the unfortunate predicament of a young Christian army officer who has been dismissed from service for his refusal to participate in the religious march of his regiment. I address what I consider to be the foremost issue arising out of the episode. This is the third in the series, and with this, I shall conclude what I have to say on the subject. But depending on the responses that would arise, as for example, found in my response column, the comment box, I shall decide whether or not to follow up this video with a further video responding to the issues raised by the viewers, because I attach tremendous significance to the response of each one of you. Now, what is the crux of the matter as far as I am concerned? Now, if you look at this episode, here is a young army officer who is very sincere about his religion, very ardent in his profession of the faith, and therefore, on the basis of what he has been taught, he feels very strongly that participating in a religious march, a march of the regiment that pertains to a religion that he does not practice, amounts to being unfaithful to his religion or unfaithful to his idea of God, and therefore he incurs the extreme risk of being disciplined by the army, which in this case attracted the extreme punishment of dismissal from service with serious lifelong consequences. This is the issue. So, if therefore you look at the picture, basically what emerges as the foremost issue, what in my opinion should emerge as the foremost issue, is the understanding of religion that this very adorable, lovable, young Christian army officer seems to have imbibed by virtue of his religious conditioning or religious practice. And what is that religious idea? If you look at it on the basis of the evidence available to us, or as per the details available to us about this case, which I must have admit is very, very sparse, frugal. But in terms of what we know about the subject on this episode, the idea essentially, the foremost idea or the shaping, decisive idea is the idea of not cooperating with a practice that belongs to other religions, based on the strong assumption, the dogmatic, doctrinal assumption that is injected into every Christian, namely, that other religions are full of darkness and error, and other religions practice false gods. All other religions, other than my own religion, practice or worship false gods, and therefore participating in anything that has anything whatsoever to do with those religions that worship false gods, is implicitly inadmissible or unacceptable to me, as it risks my own religious faithfulness or my duty to be faithful to my God, and therefore I shall not accept it, I shall not participate in it, no matter what the cost. This is the essence of the idea, essence of the situation. Now, if you really examine the situation, this is what we must call the piety of negativity. The piety of negativity. Let me explain what I mean. Here, the question is whether or not this young army officer should participate in this religious march. So he comes to a conclusion that he would not, no matter what the cost. So what is the virtue here The virtue here is a virtue of not participating in something that pertains to another faith or other faiths. That's the issue. But if you really examine the teachings of Jesus Christ, you will find that there is a deliberate attempt on the part of Jesus Christ to shift people from this foundation of the virtue of negativity, or the foundation of negative virtues. I'm going very slow in order that the idea may become clear. There are two types of virtues. One is negative virtues and the other is positive virtues. All negative virtues pertain to, are conforming to, or are obeying the instruction don't, don't, don't. For example, if you look at the 10 Commandments, don't do this, don't do that, don't these and these and these. But look at the only commandment that Jesus Christ taught. You don't find the word don't. Instead, you find the word do. Jesus says, a new commandment I give to you. This is the 34th verse of the 13th chapter of the Gospel of John. The only commandment that Jesus has given to us, a new commandment I give. When Jesus says a new commandment I give to you, he says, he gives the commandment in full awareness of the fact that the commandment that he gives is radically different from the commandments given till then, or the commandments that ruled the field till then. So Jesus is deliberately shifting the foundation of people's piety from the negative to the positive. So till the time of Jesus Christ, it was all right to not worship other gods, to not make idols, to not kill, to not commit adultery, to not steal things belonging to others, to not bear false witness, so on and so forth. Do not, do not, do not. Jesus says that's not enough at all. You have to now move on to the positive. And what is the positive? Only one thing is enough. Love one another. Love one another. Of course, Jesus quotes previously the two cardinal commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. The second is like unto the first: love your neighbor as yourself. So in both instances, it is positive. Love God, love your neighbor. And Jesus then telescopes these two commandments into one commandment and says, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. It's positive, it's positive, it's positive. But unfortunately, the Christian priestly class is still stuck in the Old Testament Levitical books. They follow faithfully the tradition of the Jewish priestly class. It's as though Jesus Christ has not brought a new idea of our relationship with God and a new idea of our spiritual personality. All that Jesus Christ has taught, all that he advocated, all that he did and stood for is totally erased. And we are taken back to the Old Testament of don't, 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 don't. Now you look at the personality of Jesus Christ. Do you find a personality of negativity? You find Jesus Christ who says, no, I'll have nothing to do with anything which is outside the pale of my religion, my race. On the other hand, you find Jesus Christ deliberately going beyond the boundaries prescribed by the Judaic religious establishment, the Judaic priestly class. If Jesus were to abide by the don'ts propagated and inflicted or thrust upon the people by the Judaic religious priestly class, he would not have gone into the region of the Samaritans. It was haram. It was proscribed for the Jews to go into the Samaritan territory. A Jew could not have accepted a drop of water from a Samaritan, male or female. And it's ironically, it is the Samaritan woman who reminds Jesus Christ of the slavery to which the Jews have been subjected by the priestly class, and she asks, "How can you, a Jew, ask of me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink? Have you forgotten your priestly class? Have you forgotten all the tremendous religious instructions that has been imposed on you? You're not supposed to come into our territory. You're not supposed to ask even for a drop of water from me. I'm a Samaritan woman." Jesus Christ crossed every barrier created by the Jewish priestly class. But what's our understanding of the way of Jesus Christ? Don't, don't, don't. Every milestone of this way is don't, don't, don't. So, what is a great virtue that is required of us today? Don't have anything to do with people of other faiths. Don't have anything to do with any of their religious rituals, customs, practices. The question needs to be asked, what is the merit in being purely negative and reactive? For example, take the episode recorded in the 16th chapter of Luke's Gospel, the famous story of Lazarus and the rich man. Lazarus lay at the gate of the rich man. His name is not mentioned there, but tradition names him as Dives. The rich man does not do anything to harm or hurt or drive away Lazarus from his gate. Still, he goes to hell because he did not do what he should have done. So, through that episode, Jesus Christ is really, with all the emphasis you can imagine, driving home to us the idea that purely negative virtues will not do. If you think that you can construct the mansion of your religiosity with negative virtues, you got it completely wrong. Now, take the world famous parable that Jesus taught, which has become a part of the English language, the parable of the Good Samaritan. So in the English language, you say, why are you playing the Good Samaritan? It's that universal parable. There, Jesus creates that parable in order to correct the expert in Jewish law of this very same problem. And when the parable ends, Jesus says to the man, go and do likewise. Because you're an expert in deciding what people should not do. And all your life is empty, barren. There is absolutely nothing in your life that people can benefit from. Go and, for God's sake, go and do something. Let there be some positive content in your life. My dear friends, even if all your life you refuse to participate in every ritual, every ceremony, every custom, and refuse even to utter a word that is particularly important for a religious tradition, your spiritual life means zero. Zero. Unless and until you fill your life and your personality with things positive, things godly, exactly like Jesus did. Can you think of the power of Jesus' personality if his religious life comprised entirely the conformity to negative instructions? Jesus would have just confined and restricted himself to a corner. He would have done nothing in his life. Jesus could not have interacted with women in public. He could not have touched the leper. He could not have interacted with sinners because he was supposed to shun sinners. He could not have helped the Canaanite woman. He could not have healed the servant of the Roman centurion. He could not have gone into the Samaritan territory. He could not have interacted with Zacchaeus and brought him to a new beginning in life. Nothing of what we today celebrate in the life of Jesus Christ could have happened if Jesus were the kind of Christians that we are. Christians of negativity. Christians who think that others are lepers, others are untouchables. Now, for God's sake, please think of this. If others were to treat us the way we are treating others, what would be our plight? Just think of it for a moment. We attach great religious value to this young man whom I love. I'm not saying this just as a matter of courtesy or some fine words. Yes, I love him. Unfortunately, he's on the wrong wicket. But I love him all the same. If others were to treat us as per the standards that we expect Sam Kamalason, the army officer, to practice, what would be our plight? Would we be happy if we are seen as religious lepers by Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, whatever? No, we would rather expect them to be very respectful, appreciative, reverential towards us. I have a very interesting experience which I have shared on a future occasion through one of my videos in this channel. I used to be a very popular preacher in Maraman. In 2005, when I was to give the concluding message in the Maraman convention, I, in the opening prayer of my message, said a word of prayer for the Hindu convention that was beginning in a place nearby. And this incensed the Marthomites. But the day prior to that, in his conversation with me, the then Metropolitan of the Marthoma Church, Chrysostom Tirumeni, told me that thousands of Hindus come and join the Marthoma Maraman convention and listen with respect and reverence the gospel message preached with great competence, great religious fervor from Maraman. That's a wonderful thing. But if a Christian entertains positive thoughts about a Hindu convention, then he's committed a serious mistake. And he is the son of Satan. Now, this is the hypocrisy that we are practicing. What did Jesus say? Treat others as you would like to be treated by them. Did he say that or not? And do we do that? And that brings me to the next point. We are particularly fond of certain ideas, certain things, certain statements, especially from the Old Testament. We are not particularly fond of what Jesus said, because that's all positive. And we pretend as though there is nothing in the Bible except the one or two sentences that we quote. So from the Levitical books and from certain stray texts, say for example from the book of Daniel, it's possible to quote texts to justify the stand taken by Samuel Kamalason and the kind of communal, bigoted ideas that we propagate. But tell me, on the basis of which teaching by Jesus Christ can you really hold up Samuel Kamalason as an ideal for the Christian youth for the days to come? Which teaching of Jesus Christ? Even the example of St. Paul. St. Paul is often quoted to justify this kind of attitude. Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers, etc., etc. But the very same Paul, when he visited Athens, went to the temple, the Athenian temple, and that temple was not dedicated to the worship of Yahweh. It was not dedicated to the worship of Jesus Christ. It was not dedicated to the Holy Spirit or God the Father. It was dedicated to the gods of the Greeks, the gods of the Athenian pantheon. Now, if the small-minded Christians of today were to advise Paul, they would have damned him to hell. How dare you go into the temple of heathens? But because Paul went there, he identified an altar which is dedicated to an unknown God, and he creates his opportunities to present the gospel to the people there. That's what's called creativity, which is inspired by the Holy Spirit. Therefore, the point I'm making is, the virtue that we traditionally associate to being purely negative towards other religions or people of other faiths is purely empty of substance. There is nothing in it. And the value that is attached to it is bogus, absolutely bogus. I don't believe even for a moment that if Samuel Kamalason's faith is well grounded and if he has a lively, vital, robust personal relationship with Jesus Christ, he is participating in a religious march the march of his own regiment, which is a professional activity. Other people may see it as a religious activity, but for you, it's a professional activity. It's a purely professional activity. It is not an activity of worship as far as you, a Christian youth, are concerned. I don't think if Samuel Kamalasan's relationship with Jesus Christ was robust, it would have troubled him one bit. Unfortunately, we commit a huge mistake, and that mistake is mistaking our loyalty to our religious traditions, our church traditions, which vary from one church to another, for our loyalty to Jesus Christ. No, my dear friends, we are not loyal to Jesus Christ because we don't even bother to find out what Jesus Christ taught. The very purpose of my starting this YouTube fellowship, the most fundamental purpose, is to try and present to the people, to the best of my ability, the real teachings of Jesus Christ. How many Christians are interested? If I create a video on even a very, very insignificant political event, 5,000 people will see it. But if I deal with the teaching of Jesus Christ and produce a first-class video, 200, 300 people will see it. I'm not interested in numbers. What I'm saying is we are not interested in Jesus Christ. And that's the reason why we remain so confused and we remain so limited, tied hand and foot. And we go by what the priestly class advocates, and they do so in order to promote their own interests. Now, that's the last thing I want to say, and let me state it right away as crisply as I can, then I close. My dear friends, particularly my dear young friends, male and female, please understand the hallmark of priests in every religion, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, what have you. Islam is not particularly strong in its priestly traditions. That's good for them. The hallmark of the outlook of the priestly class universally is one of control. Every priestly class is interested in controlling everybody else. In fact, now you can put it to test. People who choose to be priests are control freaks. And among the control freaks, the topmost control priest becomes the bishop. And that's why they conduct themselves the way they do. If you distill a bishop, the only thing that you get is control orientation. These are all small tyrants and potentates strutting around in the name of Jesus Christ, who said the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, flashing their status symbols, moving around in jazzy cars, living in palaces, wallowing in luxury and wealth, and flaunting political influence, hobnobbing with politicians, and fleecing the people dry. Why do they do this? Because for them, wealth, political influence, all these are essential to increase their control and command over the people. These are control freaks. Jesus Christ came to set the people free. These control freaks are enemies to your freedom. And the sooner you realize it, the better. I have good credentials for saying this because I have investigated this and experienced it in my marrow for 30, 40 years. Every bishop I have interacted with, and I have interacted with hundreds of bishops, there's no exaggeration, was a control freak, And these priests who are vassals and slaves to these bishops, they are also control freaks, except that the scope of for exercising their control, the craze to control others is limited. That's all. Recently, a friend of mine who belongs to a particular church in Kerala rang me up. He was sounding very upset. He is involved in doing some very good work, palliative care work. And obviously, he is doing that work in collaboration with, in partnership with people of other faiths also. Now his priest came to know of it, and he says, how dare you do this except under the authority of church? That is my authority. I have to preside over your meetings. And when he got it registered, because now it has become a legally mandated thing to register the palliative care units that you run, the priest called a meeting of the committee, parish committee, to embarrass the man. How dare you go outside my control? Earlier, I cited the instance of a member of a Marthomite, member of the Marthomite church I've encountered in United States. Brilliant man. I mean, his understanding of the Bible was superb. I was so impressed. And I said, brother, why don't you start a Bible study group? God has blessed you tremendously. He said, if my priest comes to know of this, he'll be very upset. I can't do anything unless the priest himself presides over it. But this is not confined to one church. Every church, if there is a priest, believe you me, he is a control freak. And what do you expect from them? They'll only tell you, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. And the only positive thing they say is contribute generously to the church. But as far as the world is concerned, the world is full of darkness and error. Other churches are full of devils. I was for 12 years chaplain of St. Stephen's College. So a group of people belonging to the northeastern states, young people, came to me. They said, Pastor, please allow us also to worship in the chapel. I said, you're most welcome. Anyone can come and join the worship. They said, no, that's not what we mean. What we mean is we want to conduct our separate worship using your chapel. So I said, but why? He said, because our pastor back home in Nagaland has told us not to cooperate with mainland churches, because mainland churches are full of devils. If at all you worship, you must worship separately. Now in Kerala, for that matter, do you think a Pentecostal pastor and a CSI or Marthoma pastor can lead a worship together involving 20 people belonging to the two denominations or two abominations? Impossible. Impossible, because these are control freaks. I used to visit United States of America every summer. During one of my visits, the then moderator, metropolitan of the Marthoma Church, Chrysostom Tirumeni, invited me to the diocesan headquarters in Long Island, New York. It's a palace. You should go and see the structure. It's virtually a palace. There he said at that time, Joachim Tirumeni was the bishop in charge, who is now the suffragan bishop. So Chrysostom Tirumeni said, will you help the Marthoma Church? I said, in what way? But you have great experiences and expertise in ministering to the youth. The Marthoma youth are fairly neglected. Can you help minister to the Marthoma youth in North America? You have the language, you have the ideas, you have knowledge, you have everything. And our young people will greatly benefit. But I said, Tirumeni, I can't even think about it because I'm not a Marthomite. He said, that doesn't matter. I said, your local bishop will crucify me. He said, no, I will tell Joachim Tirumeni that you are doing it and I'm requesting you to do it. I said, all right, in that case, I have no problem. No problem helping anyone. So in good faith, I started the work and I went to only places where the youth invited me. Joachim Tirumeni got so nervous that he issued orders to all the Marthoma congregations not to allow me to enter their churches, because he created a story, an utter falsehood, that I was going to the United States to start my own churches, and my own church, and the name of my church was Asian Church. I had not even thought of it in my wildest dreams. So this is what the control freak does. He has absolutely no qualms in telling lies. Why do you think Jesus Christ was tried by the high priest with the help of false witnesses? Because high priest is a control freak. Why was Jesus Christ crucified? He was not crucified for doing anything wrong. He was crucified because the high priest and the Sanhedrin were full of control freaks. And these are the people who are training you and telling you, don't do this, don't do that. They are not bothered about what you should be doing. Jesus Christ is all the time telling you, do this, do this, do this. He never says, he hardly ever says, don't. Don't. There's only one instance that I can think of. That's found in the 8th chapter of John's Gospel. The woman taken in adultery. After Jesus rescues her from the wrath of the very same people who corrupted her, who are armed to the teeth to exterminate the woman, Jesus turns to the woman and asks, has no one condemned you? She says, no. Then Jesus says, I also do not condemn you. Then he tells her, sin no more. That's to say, make a new beginning. Yes, that I can understand. But he says, sin no more after doing the work of liberation, after saving her life from the hands of these bloodthirsty men who can both corrupt her and kill her in the name of God. Now, this is the reality that all of us, if at all we care tuppence for our own integrity, our own personal dignity, we have to be mindful of. Woe unto you if you blindly follow the instructions of the control freaks who have nothing to do with the way of Jesus Christ. So, Jesus says, love one another. Love, says St. Paul, covers a multitude of sins. If you love God, if you love Jesus Christ, you are free. It doesn't matter where you are. So long as deep down in your soul you're communing with Jesus Christ. And unfortunately, another stupid falsehood that the priestly class creates is, if you want to worship, you have to come here to our own courtyard. You can't experience God anywhere else because God is an idol which we have installed here. God is under our control, these control freaks. Even God is under their control. So God, you want to worship God? Come to where we are. There? Oh, don't go there. There's no God there. So what is the idea of God as far as these priests are concerned? God who created the whole universe, the whole cosmos, is not present anywhere else except within the four walls they create. Can you imagine an idea more stupid than this? And yet, this is the idea on which we deposit our eternity. We are required to hang everything on this peg of priestly stupidity. The God who created the whole universe is not found anywhere else except within the four walls that we create and the space that we preside over. Now, this is the sum and substance of the stupidity and the slavery to which we have sunk. And my sadness is that many people are paying the price for this priestly stupidity. They are always safe. Their income will not be affected. Their status will not be affected. They will thrive. But young men and women will get into serious trouble. And in the days ahead, mark my words, in the days ahead, this problem is going to aggravate and aggravate and aggravate. And at that time, these people will wash their hands off and all of you will be left high and dry. And you will be paying with your life for things that really don't matter. That's the saddest part of it. If what you stake your life on is something of eternal value, by all means go ahead and do it. But don't waste your life on a falsehood, on a stupid idea, on a shallow concept, something that only serves the vestige of priests who are all control freaks. Now, this is something I feel very strongly about, and I submit very humbly to your consideration. Let me once again affirm, the way of Jesus Christ is not the way of negativity. Its milestones are not don't. Its milestones are do. Fill your life with things positive, things godly. May your personality radiate the light of goodness. Let your light so shine before men that they may glorify your Father in heaven, seeing your good works. Mere negativity, mere refusal to participate in this, that, and the other will not glorify God. There is no light in it. At best, this is mild darkness. Let your life be full of light, as the message came to Isaiah, arise and shine, for your time has come. I say to the young men and women, the Christian young men and women of India, arise and shine, for your time has come. Arise and shine, for your time has come. Hallelujah.